Hello everybody, welcome back to Tech with Benefits. My name's Daniel and I'm going to aim to bring you a video a week about Samsung features and show you the best ways you can use them and the most meaningful ways you can use them in your everyday life. And today's another video that goes a step further in that direction. We're going to look at everything new with the Galaxy S23 Ultra's camera system. Now, by new, I don't necessarily mean talking hardware specifics, or there is a little bit of hardware to cover. What I mean is the things you haven't been told yet. Stuff that is buried in the settings, stuff that you have to go searching for. And I'm going to tell you why it's a good upgrade and show you some of the benefits that it brings. Let's go. So, first thing we should start with the S23 Ultra in particular, is the new 200 megapixel main camera. Now, I could talk about all of the new hardware improvements that this camera has made. I could talk about quad pixel autofocus and how that not only allows for a much faster focusing and capturing speed, but also the fact that it now uses 100% of the pixels for autofocus. Or I could tell you about its capability to bin 16 pixels into one to give you a 12.5 megapixel photo. But realistically, whilst that all sounds like really impressive stuff, and it is, ultimately you need to know why 200 megapixels is important and what can you do with it. So for me personally, what I really enjoy about having all of that resolution is the flexibility after I've taken the photo. Now, I should highlight that this 200 megapixel resolution works best in supreme daylight. That is when it can capture all of the detail and all of the light and absorb it into the sensor and then use processing to make you a really good photo. With that resolution, you can then crop into it and pick out the best part of that photo to save separately. It's called Quick Crop. There's a little button at the bottom left of the gallery of the photo that you're looking at, or you can go into the editing tool and crop it to a more precise aspect ratio. Completely up to you. I like the second option because it does give me a bit more control. But for example, this photo that's going to be up on the screen now, that is a 23 megapixel crop from this wider 200 megapixel shot. And the great thing is that because of all the resolution that it started with, it's kept so much detail in the cropped in version that I was able to keep and save. And I put it on Twitter and it was really impressive how people were reacting to it. The other thing this new camera can do is it's also allowed to shoot in 50 megapixel. So you do have a bit of flexibility there to go between the different resolutions. As you can see in this example here, I've got a few photos, 200 megapixel, 50 and 12. And at 50 and 200, you can definitely read what that sign says. But at 12, you can see that it's lost the detail. Whilst it's a very pleasing image when you're in the zoomed out section, once you go in, you can see where the benefits of 200 megapixels really does lie. But look, it's not a resolution you're going to be taking a lot of photos with. You'll probably use it the way I use it, which is at the beach, at beautiful landmarks. And then when you're looking through your photo gallery later, you have that flexibility to play around with it. Along a similar path to resolution, but not necessarily in photos, in video, is 8K. Now, Samsung brought 8K in with the Galaxy S20 Ultra, or the S20 series in general, I guess you could say, 3 years ago now. So it's been a while, and its implementation at the start was janky at best. Now, I was still a big advocate of it. I still am. I'm glad that Samsung does things like this to move the industry along. They always try their hand first, and then over time, improve everything as the users get to experience it. What I really appreciate though with the jump this year is that they have brought in 8K and 30 FPS, so it's a nice smooth frame rate. But I think more importantly than that is the field of view now matches what the 4K crop is when you film in video, which just means you're not actually going to miss out on anything just to get that slight bump in resolution for your videos. Now look, 8K on your smartphone screen you aren't going to have much of a discernible difference between 4K, particularly as the panel is only Quad HD Plus. Only, it's very high resolution still. But where you get benefits from filming in 8K is if you need to crop into the video later. So you can crop out a certain part of it and you still will have a lot of resolution to play around with. But perhaps my favorite part of 8K video is when you actually get to snap a frame from the 8K video and save it as a 33 megapixel shot. Take a look at this photo here of my daughter. When you zoom in on it, it's crisp, it's sharp, it's very detailed, and it just means that not only do I have a future-proofed video of 8K of this moment that we were in, but I also get to save that as a separate photo, which means I just have a lot of flexibility with that resolution. Continuing the path of video, let's take a bit of a look at portrait video, because it was something that Samsung introduced way back with the launch of the Galaxy S10 5G. Now that had a time of flight sensor, so that kind of utilized that sensor to bring in hardware level portrait video. Now over time, Samsung has definitely made improvements to it, but it was always capped at full HD resolution. With the launch of the Galaxy S23, Samsung has introduced Ultra HD or 4K portrait video, and it's really impressive. I've been really enjoying filming it, especially down at the beach, watching my kids run around playing together. It's been phenomenal because it does create a really nice effect and make them stand out in the video. In fact, I've been so impressed with its capabilities that I've even decided to start using it for this YouTube channel. This video is actually being shot using 4K portrait video at bokeh level 3. You can see its capabilities and the fact it can preserve a lot of detail whilst also giving that really nice sort of depth of field effect. It's not too heavy, but it does make the video pop a little bit. So definitely worth checking out and something that I think is a really nice improvement. Now another update to video. Seems like there's a lot of video updates. Makes sense. Samsung has definitely pushed video a lot harder with the S23 series in general, but particularly the Ultra. What they've also done, again, it's a small resolution update, is super steady. The camera's ability to, using software and hardware, stabilize itself and almost act like an action camera. Super Steady's got an improvement to Quad HD resolution. So you can have Quad HD 30 FPS or Quad HD 60. You can see here, yes, Super Steady makes a difference when you're just running along with your camera. And from the viewfinder to the actual end result, it's fantastic. But you see a lot of those camera tests where that's all they're doing, is they're just showcasing you running down a street and really not filming anything. But as a parent, you use your smartphone camera to chase after your kids. They very rarely will be sitting still or not running around. So to chase them around, you need to be able to have a camera that stays stable. And Super Steady does just that. Like you can see how sort of janky I'm running along the sand, and then the end result looks superb. Now, I also wanted to compare what the improvements to the OIS were, because the S23 Ultra has that 2 times wider OIS correction angle, which basically means that the camera is counterpointing itself against my movements 2 times better or wider than it did with the S22 Ultra. So I just wanted to see how that looked. And look, if you didn't remember to turn Super Steady on, you'll still be very, very impressed with its capability at remaining stable, because the camera can keep itself smooth despite your movements, and the end result looks great. So let's touch on Pro Video Mode while we're here. Pro Video Mode, again, it was introduced a few years ago, and the whole point of it was to give the user a bit more control over how they be able to record their smartphone videos. It just enhanced, if anyone wanted to control it, enhanced their capability to do so. It's always basically just been settings at the bottom that you could manipulate. There hasn't been much more. Yes, there was the audio stuff, which I think is great because you have flexibility over what microphones you're going to record with, whether it be the ones on the back of the phone, whether it be the ones on the front, or a combination of all of them. Or if you have a USB mic plugged in, like I do, you can actually control the decibel levels, the left and right balance as well. Or if you have Bluetooth Galaxy Buds, like I've also got here, you can record with those. Now, one thing though is that it was just basically the same quality as normal video until now. Samsung in the settings, advanced video settings, has introduced a higher bitrate for pro videos. Now it's limited to 4K, so you can't do this in 8K. Thank you to Alex Kieran Tech for pointing that out and highlighting that part. But basically what this does is it just gives you more information. More information though means more data. So that means that your file size is actually going to be bigger than your normal video recording in normal video mode. So just be aware of that. And if you are looking to get a little bit more information out, that's where you can utilize this. It does also save it in the high efficiency video format, the HEVC. So just be aware of that too. You can, of course, get that converted before you send it off. It's just a case of being aware of what the setting does. Now, the last video feature to touch on here is ASTRO HYPERLAPSE. It is so cool what this can do. Now look, I might be able to tell you that it's cool and that these are the type of things you can capture from it. Have a look at the video I was able to capture from my backyard before clouds came in and ruined it. But what this does is it just adds a bit of fun. And I think that's what we can sometimes lose sight of, is that not every camera feature that a smartphone makes has to have a real tangible world benefit. You can just have a bit of fun with it, because people do like to go camping. People do like to try things out and experiment with their smartphones. So having features like this is perfectly acceptable as long as you get all the other stuff right as well. And I think with the Ultra and the S23 series, Samsung have done that, so they can afford to throw these extra niceties in to play around with. Now, ASTRO HYPERLAPSE just extends to what Hyperlapse has already been able to do. You have been able to capture light trails of cars and stuff in the past, but the ASTRO Hyperlapse part adds in a 300 times speed hyperlapse option. But to get the star trails, you need to go down the bottom right corner of the camera and turn on star trails. If you forget to turn that on, look, it's not the end of the world. You still can get videos like this, but it just means you're not going to get that trail effect of the stars and the long exposure that the video hyperlapse can do if you turn it on. So just make sure you're aware that that's there. And to get at least 8 seconds of footage, it takes between 45 minutes to an hour. So just be ready to spend a bit of time or do the whole set and forget. You just might be without your phone for an hour and a half if you want to get a decent length video. The last thing to add in here is that in the More tab, they've now added Expert RAW. And I think that's great because it just gives a shortcut without needing to always go to the Expert RAW app to use it. But you cannot drag it down to the bottom. So just be wary of that. You do need to go to the More tab every time. Now, this is not the video to talk through the changes to Expert RAW because there are numerous amount of differences to this app in particular. So let me know down below if you'd like a video on Expert RAW. Happy to go through all the extra stuff that can bring to your camera experience with the Galaxy S23. So look, wrapping up, there's a lot to love about what is here. Obviously, it's taking the package that was already offered from the S21 Ultra with the high resolution main camera, the dual pixel cameras surrounding it, the ultra wide, the 10 times telephoto, the 3 times telephoto, all with dual pixel autofocus, and of course the laser autofocus module that allows for macro photography also. That stuff's all there. That hasn't gone away. What this video showcased was everything that it's added in to enhance that already flexible experience that this camera system provides. So look, that's it for this week. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, come hang out with me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you next week with another Samsung feature and benefit video. Peace.